Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Ask Bill Keegan Show. I am your host, Bill Keegan, Foxborough Town Manager, and this week my guest is Department of Public Works Director Roger Hill. Welcome, Roger, and thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Bill.
I want to talk a little bit about the winter that just wouldn't quit, the winter of 2015. And as I go around town talking to folks, the weather has clearly been the number one topic of discussion for the day. But before I start, I just want to say thanks to, and I'm truly grateful to all the members of your staff for the fine work that you have all done during this very, very trying winter, and to keep all our roads and sidewalks open during a very difficult time. I know that some of the storms were really long duration storms, and last as much as 36 hours in some cases. However, your crews stayed out with the storm and did everything they could to keep the roads and sidewalks open, at least for public safety purposes in some cases, and then came back to open things up much wider once the storms had passed. So tell me, Roger, I mean, I've been around this business for a while, but you've been around longer than I have, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but certainly, we've seen a lot of bad winters, and can you ever remember one just like this one?
No, this is a real anomaly. This is probably the worst winter that I've been around for.
Right.
I can remember when I was just a little boy, we used to get some real big ones, but this one makes 78 look small, really.
Right. Well, 78 was interesting because we were just talking about this before the show started, that technology the way it is today, at least we have a lot more warning, and we've taken steps to get people off the roads before the real storm hits. And so therefore, you don't see you probably will never see the impacts of a blizzard of 78 again, given the way we treat storms today. The equipment that you now have, that the state has, that most cities and towns have, does a much better job of keeping the roads open. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, actually the equipment is one of the big pluses, that the equipment hangs together well. In the old days, we'd be out plowing, and instead of having central hydraulic systems on the trucks, we had pony motors to drive the spreaders. And the pony motors always caught the slush from the wheels and they'd die. So you'd be in the middle of a sanding run and all of a sudden the sander doesn't work anymore. Today, the trucks are a lot better. We have better heavy equipment. Our loaders, our sidewalk plows, everything we have is more robust. It has the ability to do the work. And it shows. It shows on the roads.
Yeah, it's been a big difference. We've had a lot of storms where we probably had like 4 storms in a row where we had at least 12 inches or more. In some cases, up to almost 30 inches in the major blizzard of 2015. But I noticed that fortunately for us, that those storms where the snow was was light snow, so it wasn't a heavy wet snow that's very difficult to move, so it made it a lot easier to clean up. And it was just commenting that while there was a ban on driving during that period of time, obviously for public safety officials could be on the roads, I was able to travel back to Foxborough following the blizzard of 2015. And while it may have been just a few cars on the road, I was able to travel around town looking at the conditions of Foxborough. And I was really quite impressed with the way that the roads have been taken care of. And the next day, we're actually almost all fully open for business.
Pretty much.
Which is pretty amazing to me. So,
there are difficult problems that occur during storms, and people think that we're out doing just the roads, but as soon as the roads are done, we're on the sidewalks and the schools, and the sidewalks and the town buildings, and it takes quite a while to do the whole litany. A good example is that the first big blizzard, we got 30 inches, and I think we worked a total of about 60 hours straight. Seemed like it to me anyway.
Yeah, it was just constant.
And the guys did great. I mean, we do feed the guys when we can get food,
right.
Because you don't want guys going home, because if they go home, they're going to fall asleep and you're not going to be able to wake them up half the time.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's true.
So what we do is let them rest between, runs, and we try to keep trucks on the road at all times, or other equipment out there.
Right.
The problem with the first one was, as soon as the first one was over, we got these wicked low temperatures. As you know, the snow was light and fluffy, but the wicked low temperatures just froze everything. Is
Right.
in the daytime you get a little bit of sun, it would melt the top, and then it would freeze down to 0 at night, and you'd have a crust on the top. And we're trying to open up sidewalks, and we ended up not being able to plow any of the sidewalks because, first of all, the sidewalk plows the blades are too shallow to be able to take that much snow.
Right.
So we had to put the blowers on. And we have 5 units that can blow snow, other than we have one skid steer, but it can't do sidewalks because it's too wide. But we have 5 units, and the first night, 2 of them broke down bad. One of them blew an engine.
Wow.
And the second one really pretty much demolished the blower unit itself.
Wow.
So we cobbled together and cannibalized 2 to get 1. But then the next day, one of our best units, the MB, which we have had a lot of problems with, it broke down. And that's a blower unit too. So we ended up with 2 sidewalk blowers, and we had to handle the first storm. We got that one done, and then a couple days later, we get the second one, and the second one was a windy storm, if you remember. And all of the sidewalks that we had blown out filled right up to the top again with snow, drifting snow and blowing snow. So then we go back on the sidewalks again, and we got 2 blowers now. So we just keep working them, and day after day. Thank God I had 2 great operators, Fred Shannon and Rob Kerr. And both those guys are great on sidewalk plows. They don't ruin stuff. They're careful. They drive slow. They know the routes, and they get the work done.
Well, that's so important. We so often take things for granted that the guys know exactly where things are. But when you get so much snow like this, things disappear. I mean, you lose hydrants, you lose signs, you lose mailboxes. All those things disappear when you have this much snow. So it's easy to run into things, but if these guys knew what they were doing, which they did, they clearly did, they obviously were able to avoid a lot of those things. So I think a lot of credit goes to them. Our thanks go to them for doing such a great job. And it's interesting, we were talking also that we in winters we typically have a policy of helping people with their mailboxes when they get clipped by a plow or a slush or whatever the situation may be. This year, we're just not able to do that because so many different mailboxes.
We did some.
We were able to cover.
Yeah.
But.
And Pete Sobo, the highway supervisor, has come up with a mailbox pattern that we're perfectly willing to share with people,
Sure.
so that even if they get a mailbox knocked over, it can be easily put back on.
Okay.
And if people would copy that pattern, they wouldn't have half the problems that they normally have. You were talking about hydrants. Unfortunately, people don't clear the hydrants much anymore. So my water department guys ended up pretty busy just clearing hydrants.
Right.
In addition to that, these low temperatures drove the frost down deep, and we had a bunch of freeze-ups, water services that froze up. So we had to buy a bunch of hose and serve people that had frozen services from houses next door.
Wow.
And the important thing is at night, you got to remember to leave the water running a little bit, because if you don't, the hose freezes.
Oh, geez.
So that was a problem. And we still have a few that are frozen up. I think there's still 4 or 5 that are frozen up.
I know that a lot of those things are hopefully gonna stop melting, and we'll get back to a little bit of level of normalcy of the next few weeks. But now the big problem is potholes, and
Exactly.
and what's happened is that you mentioned earlier that the frost went so deep into the ground that it caused situations where you can see that the road has lifted around manhole covers.
Right.
And it's not that the manhole has sunk; it's that the road has lifted around it because it's the frost in the ground that's pushed the road up. Now, when those things start to settle down, they have a tendency to crack.
Right.
And so, fortunately, we did a lot of paving this past few years, so we had a lot of good pavement services around town that was able to, minimize that to a degree. But we still got some tough roads in town. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course, some of the roads that we have that are really difficult to repair right now because we're doing underground work on them. Mechanic Street's the chief one, and Mechanic Street needs to be rebuilt, and we know that, but we're working on transferring water services and mains from 2 old unlined mains that are problematic with black water over to a new 20-inch main that's on the west side of the street, and we've still got a lot of work left to do on that. So we'll be working out there all summer, and we're anxious to get going on the work, but it's too early right now to start water work. So Mechanic Street is one that has lots of potholes. We know that Main Street from the state line into the Common has a number of problems, but that's slated for rebuilding this year. We also know that we have some outlying streets that are problematic, but we have two pothole crews out right now, and we'll keep them out as long as we have problems. And they're out. We use a special pothole mix because if you just try to put cold asphalt into the potholes, it just blows right out. The traffic just blows it out. So we have to buy this special pothole mix that you can put into wet holes, and it'll stabilize and stay there for the most part. You know, sometimes you can't possibly fix them. You have to wait. When we can get hot mix, we'll do a lot of potholes with hot mix, but hot mix, it's too cold out there right now to apply hot mix. It doesn't stay hot, even in our heaters. It just doesn't stay hot.
Right. So it makes it what's doubly difficult for us to really address those kinds of situations. So we appreciate everybody's patience. We just tell people to drive cautiously out there because obviously potholes are out there. They're everywhere, but there's nothing we can really do to really stop that given the conditions. So just be patient with us. We'll do the best we can to try and get things back up and running as soon as possible.
And it's a good idea for people that if they see a pothole to call it in. Either call it in to the police, the dispatcher, or call it into the highway. Because as soon as we get notice, we have 24 hours to fix, period.
Right. Exactly.
But if we don't have notice, you know, we don't know it's there.
Right, exactly. So it is important to let us know, and we will address it as soon as we can. I just want to point out to some of the good things that come out of storms like this. Obviously, is that it does bring the community together a little bit more, and it actually brings out some really good qualities in folks. And it was great to see that the kids at I believe it was the IGO that put together a number of thank you cards to your crew.
Yeah, they were great.
And so we put together a board here, and I'd like to maybe focus on that just a second. That this is the board that was put together by the students with all the thank you cards that I'm going to present this to the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday night at their meeting. But this is just a great story to talk about, and how kids have really appreciated the fact that the work that was being done. I think, and of course the parents of course are grateful as well. But it just goes to show you that. That there are a lot of good things that come out of things like this. So they're in these crisis situations.
Our clerical help, our two ladies down at Highway, and we're both astounded with the quality of the work that these kids did on these cards.
Yeah.
They're really terrific.
It's really good stuff.
And the guys loved them, of course.
Oh, yeah.
We had a lot of nice people drop in. I mean, people
Sure.
would come in and drop off big boxes of donuts or, food for the guys.
Yeah.
You don't expect that.
No, I know.
And it's neat when it comes. And I want to pay great credit to all the guys, not just the Highway and Tree and Park guys who do a great job anyway, but the water guys helped out a lot this year.
Sure.
And they've been super busy themselves.
Right.
So, and in water, nothing stops. It's a 24/7, 365 job. Every day the work has to go on. Weekends, it doesn't matter. We got 13 wells in town we've got to take care of, and every day they have to be monitored. So they just do a great job.
So tell us a little bit about the cost of this winter. I know I get that question a lot from folks, and we're going to talk about it in two ways. One is the fact that we normally budget somewhere around $450,000 a year. The normal operations is about $200,000, but then another $250,000 that we budget as a reserve for major storms like this. And in comparison, last year was about a $400,000 winter. This year is running about what, 708, Roger?
That's our FEMA number,
Okay.
708 for the four storms that we had. But our actual costs will be slightly under that because FEMA allows us to charge off the time on vehicles.
Okay.
And the town, we don't charge off that time against the town because the vehicles get replaced when they need it. So
Right.
it doesn't come out of snow and ice.
No.
So it would be a little bit under the 700, but I got it by storm, and kind of interesting. The first one, the big one that we call the big one, was the FEMA number was about $188,000. Number 2 was about 115,000. Number 3 was 185,000, and the reason for that was it lasted a long time.
Right.
It was a long duration storm. And then finally, the last one was about 118,000. So that totals out to about 600,000. But then we add in the private plows, and we add in the salt and sand that we used, and food, and we're up to 708. And the lowest item on here was the amount of food the guys ate. And for the total 30-day period, they only ate $1,700 worth of food, which is pretty cheap.
It's pretty cheap when you think about it, considering the amount of time that they all put in into that. So I appreciate the cost accounting. We actually are submitting this stuff to the state and through MEMA, the Massachusetts Emergency Management Act, and as well as and they in turn are asking the federal government for assistance in this case. And in fact, this actually, in this month's edition of the Beacon, that's the lead story that the governor is asking for assistance on, so that we can actually request through MEMA some assistance for paying back some of these costs for the storm. We typically, in situations like this, we get somewhere around 75 cents on the dollar for a storm of this type of emergency. And so we may or may not see that money in this fiscal year. More likely we'll see it in next fiscal year, but at least it will get some reimbursement for it. And if that was the case, we could in fact be back in the black in terms of our overall budgets for this year. So we appreciate the efforts of the governor and the administration and MEMA to try and help us with that effort. But I'm told, I heard that the number the other day was somewhere near about $300 million that it's cost the statewide to pay for these storms.
In the 9 counties that are qualified.
That's correct, yeah. Not every county qualified, you're correct in saying that. It's important to note that actually this year it seemed like the western communities didn't fare as badly as the ones in the eastern communities, so that the ones closer to the shore were actually the ones that struggled a little bit more this time.
Yeah, I actually had occasion to be in Holyoke last weekend, and they didn't have near as much snow up there as we've had here.
Right, right. That's unusual because usually it's just the opposite.
Right.
That's the snow belt out in the western half of the state, and we typically get the traces. But this is an unusual type of year for that.
We have a special hero that I have to thank, though, for we have a very limited time to put these numbers together. As a matter of fact, the first major blizzard, we had to have the numbers in 2 weeks, which was way more than we normally get. But just after the last storm, we got a call from MEMA saying they needed them the following Thursday. And I got to thank Donna Johnson because she put a hell of an effort in to get these numbers together for 4 storms. And we only had really 3.5 days to do it, to get the numbers together, and she did a great job, just did a fabulous job.
No, we truly appreciate that, and I know that everybody sort of pulled up their boots and did what they had to do to get this work done, and I appreciate particularly the work of Donna to do that too. So again, thanks to you and your crews for all the fine work that they've done. I also want to say thanks to all the public safety folks who endured a lot of the storm impacts as well. They were out during some difficult scenarios, difficult conditions to try and make their way through and assist people whenever that was needed. We had a few impacts, significant building impacts that we had to deal with, particularly the terminals, the Foxborough Terminals building collapsed. Actually, three of those buildings actually collapsed, and they're now being rebuilt, being torn down rather, and only I think 2 of them are actually functional at this point in time. So it remains to be seen what the future of those buildings will be. given the scenario. But there was a lot of material that were in those buildings. There was a fire in one, and then there was several roof collapses because of the weight of the snow. So those were the major impacts that we saw. Fortunately, we didn't get a lot of individual home impacts, even despite all the snow, except for the fact that we did a lot of ice dams, and virtually everybody that I knew. I drove around one day, including myself, had ice dams, and it was interesting because when you drive around town, I was amazed at the size of the icicles and the ice dams that were on people's homes, and the amount of snow on people's homes, and people eventually did remove some of that, but it was quite an ordeal to get all that stuff off.
I think our biggest problem, I saw two big problems in the storm. The first one was the extreme cold. The extreme cold, as soon as we clear a road off and get it down to black pavement, it begins to freeze under low temperatures, and it freezes underneath the pavement, and that's when you get the frost heaves that Bill was talking about, and they're a problem. They're always a problem. They're a problem in the spring. They distress the pavement. They shorten the life of pavement dramatically. The second big problem we had was salt. And we had an interesting discussion at, we belong to a regional group that's made up of 20 towns called Southeast Regional Services Group. And we discussed the salt problem at our last meeting last Tuesday. And it turns out that the salt is always delivered by these big trailer dump trucks. They can get 33 tons in a dump trailer. But that also happens to be the ideal vehicle for loading snow out of cities. All of the salt comes into either Providence or Boston, and they have big storage areas. They had plenty of salt in Boston and plenty of salt in Providence. But the trailer dumps were having real problems getting in and out, and they'd sit in line for hours to try to get into the salt pile in Boston, then get a load and then come back out. And these are all private trucking companies, and Boston and Providence were paying more for hauling snow than they were for paying for delivering salt. So the trailer guys all went to work hauling snow, and there were no trailers available.
So it was a case of supply and demand. We just simply didn't have enough supply of trucks in order to deliver the material that all the towns needed.
And what it really was, it was a money issue.
Sure it was.
Because they make more money hauling snow than they do delivering salt.
Correct.
And so there's ways that we can work through that, and we've discussed them privately. I'm not going to talk about them here today, but the services group has come up with a way that we think we can work it so that we don't have these kind of problems in the future. And of course, the winter was an anomaly.
That's right.
So,
well, it's good. These types of storms, actually, with everything that becomes a challenge, we certainly find new solutions. We find better ways to do things. So, everything becomes an opportunity in many ways.
Right.
So I think it's okay to talk about things in that kind of format.
Right.
So,
right.
But let me just turn to a couple other topics because. But I certainly want to say thank you for coming in today and talking to you about the storm of 2015 and the storms of 2015. And let's all hope that we have an early spring now and we get and the thaw that's coming right now is actually pretty good. So it's good to see that on a slow, steady pace.
Nice and easy.
Nice and easy, slow and steady pace. So just a couple other topics I want to touch upon this morning is that we're discussing the new fiscal 26 budget process. The advisory committee, the director of finance, and I have been working towards making all the pieces fit so we have a balanced budget proposal for 2016, and that will present at the town meeting in May. At this juncture, we still have a gap to close, but it's a manageable gap that we hope to bridge on April 1st. At that time, I'll be making my final budget recommendations to the advisory committee. And on Saturday, March 14th, we will be reviewing all the capital spending requests and making recommendations on each of those proposals. This will be my first time utilizing this process that appears to be efficiently designed. That will be one more piece of the annual town meeting process to be finalized. And finally, the plans for the new town hall are well underway, and Roger actually participated on the original advisory committee. We have been meeting regularly with the Design Architects LLB to come up with some interior design layouts. We've looked at several, and we've narrowed those options down to one that seems to work with everyone. We are going back to one more time to all the departments to make sure that we've picked up everything that they were looking to do. And the next phase will be to try and locate the proposed structure on the existing parcel by working with the engineering company of this project, which happens to be Bay Colony, which is a local firm, of course. We will then turn to the outside design, and that is where we will seek some input from the public. As I originally pointed out, that we wanted to get some thoughts from the community as to what kind of look that they would like to support. And we are all clear on the idea this must be a colonial design. I think we all agreed on that. And the building committee is starting to look at some concepts that might lead us in some directions. There are clearly different types of colonial architecture that people can believe that they have or they have thoughts about. But we want something that truly complements the historic character of this community, and I think that's important because so often that there are designs that come out that just don't truly complement what the communities are all about. And I think this is something that we have truly a great opportunity to try and capture something special. So again, I want to thank you for serving on that part of the process too. Turned out to be a pretty good process.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
There were 15 of us, and everybody started with different ideas.
Right.
And I was not a proponent of building on the existing site. Mm-hmm. I thought there were other sites that were better, right. and I had other people that felt the same way, but eventually we managed to get past all that and build a consensus, and the consensus delivered what I think is going to be the best product for the town of Foxborough.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there were a lot of good thoughts that came around the table. We were very good not to dismiss anybody's thoughts. We thought about them, we considered them. We didn't always agree as to what we should do, but I think that by and large there was a pretty good consensus as to what we could do. It was great to meet with the building committee the other night. I was able to get to actually meet with them and talk about all the things that have gone into the process so far. Our design engineers and Vertex, who was our project coordinator, project manager, were there, and design folks have been very, very responsive to what we're looking to try and achieve. So that process continues to move on, and I'm very pleased to see where we are with that process, and we're pretty much on schedule as we plan to be. So we'll be looking at something in the fall to bring back to residents so that they can actually determine if they want to support the building of this new building. So finally, earlier this week I was at the New England Leadership Summit, which was held in Boston, which is talking about smart growth development, and there's a lot of great ideas that were around the table. Opportunity to talk with and network with several folks who do really smart growth development, which is something that we all want to see happen. It was also a great opportunity to meet some of the new secretaries for the state, the Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of Economic Development were all there. So it was great to kind of get to know. Actually, Jay Ash is a former colleague of mine, former city manager in Chelsea, is now Secretary of Economic Development, so it was great to see him there. And it was good just to kind of get some ideas as to what people are doing around the state. And it was a lot of interest in Foxborough, of course, Foxborough being the center of the universe for a lot of things. But it was great and it was great that folks were able to identify with what we've done here and some great things that are being done around the community. So I think that captures all the things I want to cover for this session of the Ask Bill Keegan show. Certainly, if anyone has other ideas that they would like me to discuss on our next show, please let me know. You can send me an email at bkeegan@town.foxborough.ma.us. Foxborough spelled in the old-fashioned way with the O-U-G-H. And please send me your emails, and I'd love to be able to respond to any questions that you have. Until then, I want to say thanks to my colleague and friend Roger Hill for joining me today, and we'll see you next time on the Ask Bill Keegan show.